John Frost looked on the gathered crowd, now 3,000 strong. With heavy heart, his voice rang loud as he sang this loveless song. God is a guide from field, from wave, from plough, from anvil, and from loom. We come our country's rights to save and speak a tyrant faction's doom. We raise the watchword liberty. We will be free. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament comes crashing down with Robert's Rules of Order. And bobbies took an oath to be our nation's warders, swearing that they would enforce Sir Robert's Rules of Order. To Newport rose a million friends who rallied each supporter to join this flood of working men against Robert's Rules of Order. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament comes crashing down with Robert's Rules of Order. Like this, on the steps of Parliament, John Frost stood proud and tall. A hush fell on this great event as he told them one and all, depose the gentry and the crown, depose the House of Lords, or join the Queen in exile by Robert's Rules of Order. So Chartists, Luddites, Communists, recall each faithful martyr who died so you could have your new world Robert's Rules of Order. Say it loud, vote your favor, shout it high. All in favor, you say aye. Favor, aye, favor, aye. A mandate of the people's cry. Favor, aye, favor, aye. Let's hear the opposition side. Like a stubborn donkey's bray. All opposed, you say nay. Opposed, opposed. The motion carries anyway. Currents change and bring to us our dear corrupted warder. In chains subdued and ill-abused, he's left with no supporters. Mobility's will can then proceed by our own rules of order, and we'll all cheer for country's sake when Robert's drawn in quarter. For when the rising tide is turned in every London quarter, Parliament shall be reborn with Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh. Just waiting for that big, it's got to be like a publisher's clearinghouse big ass check.
Still, they owe me a lot of money.
Anyway, I'm sorry that I'm going to be coughing. I will be for a while. This COVID kicked my booty this time. Not as bad as last time, though, I will say. But it is in my lungs.
Remember, the coughing is a secret code.
So we only prepped up 6 questions this time, but hopefully we'll deal with them thoroughly. Because there might be some people tuning in because they thought this was something it wasn't. We're just basically a fun, somewhat filthy, introductory, sometimes more advanced discussion of Robert's Rules of Order. I'm sorry if you thought it was anything more than that. Well, Mike and I are both Libertarian, I say LP like everyone knows that, Libertarian Party members. We certainly do branch out into discussing other types of organizations, which I hope will start to do more. And maybe even, because I was talking with Sylvia the other day, like some of the unique, I have COVID brain, so I'm not coming up with the right words. Options, that's not the word. Variations, like when it comes to things like homeowners associations and things like that. And one day, I want to do a show with you. Whoa! Fuck. See, I told you we're slightly filthy. Hold on one second. I want to see if I can find a sock or something, because that's going to be sticky and nasty.
A sock?
Well, I knew there was a sock up here or some kind of towel. Well,
socks to be you, I guess.
Wayne is not going to like that I took a towel off of his reloading station. You know that reloading station he has over there? This was just like, yeah, he's watching. Wayne, I just took this towel off of your reloading station. And it's all over my keyboard.
And the screen just went screwy.
Oh, fuck. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let me try to add you back on. I was just trying to, so I add you to right, and now I'm not. I need to add me left. And now we're not.
Now we're in three-way.
Oh, we don't want, oh my God. How do I remove that third? Guest. Let's, no, I don't want to do that. Oh my God. We don't want to do that. Let's go
blackface.
Here. Mike, you're a question mark. I'm a question
It's
mark.
a 2, actually. That's a 2, and you're a 3, apparently.
I am learning how to do this, I guess, at the same time. How do I remove guests? I see how to add you.
There's me,
Okay.
sort of.
I see how to add me.
There's you, sort of. Now
we need to remove 2 and 4.
2 and 3, actually.
2 and 3. Let's see. How do I do that?
Please stand by when we are experiencing some
that's you, solo.
Hey, that's the best picture of me yet.
This is me, solo. Now let's try adding you to the right. Okay, I fixed it that way. It still has all those other guests on my master screen, but it's not showing them. So I learn more about this program every day. If anyone's wondering what studio program I'm using, it's Ecamm. Mike's been in the studio, and if I call you the wrong name tonight, Mike, please don't be offended. I've been doing this for a week now, calling people by the wrong name, just like out of the blue. And at one time, I called somebody a name.
Adrian, okay.
Okay, Adrian. One day, I was talking with somebody, and I called them a name of somebody I don't even know. It's not even like I was confusing them with like another name in my brain. I called a friend of mine, Olivia. I know some Olivias online, but in personal life, I don't know any Olivias. So that was crazy. So just let me wipe up a little here. What I would like to talk...
Yeah, Dave Davis is right. There's like a black line over my head.
I don't think there's anything we could do about that, and we're just going to live with it. Because if I start messing around with it... We'll be here all night. But maybe hold on.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled confusion.
Yeah, I'm gonna do guest 1, Mike, and let's see if I can. Hey. Yes, I can fix it. There we go. I fixed it.
There we are.
Okay, thank you, thank you. What I would like to talk one day about, but not today, for various reasons, which will be obvious to you and me and maybe not everyone else, besides the fact that I'm not all there. I think it's a fascinating topic. Well, you know, it's a fascinating topic that has come up recently, I think in a very abusive way. Most people may not know that Mike and I got into Roberts, and I may not be staying involved in it because we so often see it used not to actually enforce rules, but to abuse people. And it's so funny that when it's used correctly, more tyrannical types say it's being abused, but no, it's just curbing tyranny. But the issue I wanted to talk about, maybe dedicate an entire episode to, is renewal of motions. I don't think people understand that well. When are they dilatory? When are they not? Who really gets to decide? Is Roberts really intended to be the tyranny of the majority, or is it intended to be a balancing right?
And related
Balancing.
to all that are questions
Yeah.
of reconsider and rescind.
Yeah, because there was a statement made the other day that I found really deeply disturbing that suggested that rules of order are a tyranny of the majority, and they are not. They can often be used that way, but that was never, ever the intent of Roberts to be the tyranny of the majority.
As a matter of fact, in the earliest chapters, and I think it's even in the preface, it indicates directly
It
that
does.
it's about protecting the rights of of each individual member.
It gives like 4 categories of people that it protects. Now, the majority is one of the categories, but it also, says a significant minority, which is defined as anything more than a third, the assembly as a whole, and the individual. If I remember correctly, those are the 4 categories. But a comment was made the other day that it was basically the tyranny of the majority. And to me, that was such a disservice to Roberts, in my opinion. At least that's the way it came off. It doesn't mean...
It just shows they haven't really read it.
Or maybe I misunderstood what was said. But that's the way it was taken by most people who heard it. So communication is on the speaker. There's a little bit of responsibility on the listener, but if so many people misunderstand something, it's probably the speaker that messed up and not the listeners who are all wrong. So let's go right to our questions before I was going to say expire, but I didn't mean that literally, like dead, but I mean before my energy expires.
This is my luxury product placement. This is my beer tonight.
This is my little tiny bottle of Fireball that spilled nearly all over my desk. I was only going to be able to take a couple sips anyway, but...
For those of you who have never seen this, Old Style is a Midwestern beer. They're based out of the Midwest. I think it's either from Milwaukee or Chicago. It's one of my favorites. I don't get it too often. I found some about a month ago, and I'm saving it for special occasions. So
do you have the calendar nearby that I bought for you?
I do.
I want to show everybody, and then we'll get right into the questions. Yeah, check it out. I found it at Walmart. I was like, Mike's got to have that. Mike has got to have that.
The Rainbow Tie-Dye discount. I thank you for that. That was awesome.
Okay, so we're going to go right to, hopefully, what's the first question? Remember, I'm still trying to perfect this part. But I think I got it now. But the minute I say that, it's going to turn into 4 people on the screen again. Here we are. And we'll see if I'm able to, work this out appropriate. So the question is, if the assembly wishes to decline to take a position on a main motion, and I put moschino, that cannot
Italian motion.
Yeah, on the moschino, that cannot be either adopted or expressly that should be rejected without possibly undesirable consequences. It should A, lay the motion on the table. B, postpone the motion indefinitely. C, refer the motion to a committee. Or D, request permission to withdraw the motion.
Okay. So the issue here is that the motion is so whacked that they don't want to take a position one way or the other of either adopting it or rejecting it, because either one would put them in a position of being, what the heck? So they wanted to just go away without passing or failing it. So
and that should be postpone the motion indefinitely, not post. As you can tell, I haven't been feeling well, but I think you got what B is. Yeah, I'm saying typos I'm seeing.
The Roberts translator is working.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so if you lay, I'm going to walk through these a little bit. If you lay the motion on the table, it can stay there indefinitely until the session expires, at which point it would die. So you could do that, but it runs the risk of being picked back up again later on. If you postpone the motion indefinitely, then that definitely kills the motion. But the question is that the same as rejecting it? Probably. No, actually, it's not. Refer the motion to a committee, like laying in the motion on the table. You could send it over there, and it can die eventually, or nothing, or they can recommend no action or whatever. You could do it, but it's not the best approach. You can request permission to withdraw the motion once the motion belongs to the body. That could be an option. Of all these four, the easiest and best way to do it is to try D first, and then, and if that doesn't work, then try to have it postponed indefinitely. But I'm going to go with try to postpone it indefinitely with B.
Okay, this is a really, really interesting question. You are correct, by the way, it's B. There's something
Okay.
I want to look up on this. I'm going to go to the pages where it talks about it in the old book. But I'm going to disagree with you on some things in the rationale. If you lay, and I could be wrong because I have COVID brain, so this is something to discuss. If laying the motion on the table for this reason would be an improper use of laying the motion on the table. You're only supposed to lay a motion on the table if some intervening business has come up that's so urgent or needs to be dealt with first.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, people misuse that motion. Now, could it be done and have this effect? Perhaps, but it would be an improper use of lay the motion on the table. But that isn't really what I was going to disagree with you on. What I was going to disagree with you on. What I was going to disagree with you on is I think it doesn't kill it at the end of that session. I think a motion that's been laid on the table can be brought back up off the table at any time during a quarter. Now, I can't remember if I'm correct on that, on lay the motion on the table, but I don't think it falls to the floor at the end of the session. I think it falls to the floor at the end of the quarter. So let's look that up because I think that's one of the most abused motions that there is.
For exactly that reason, yes.
For so many reasons. People. So let me look here. Lay on the table, and I'm looking at the newest version for this.
I'm looking at back in 11.
It looks like it's section 17. Yeah. Very rarely should anyone ever have to use this motion, and the fact that you hear it almost every meeting lets you know it's abused.
Okay, stand to see. Consideration can be resumed with the will of the majority in preference, except for the time limits, which are on 214.
Says the time limit. Yep, I was correct. So 17.8, a question that has been laid on the table remains there, and can be taken from the table during the same session, or if the next regular business session will be held before a quarterly time period has elapsed. But I was slightly wrong. It has to be the next business session. So you could have 10 more business sessions scheduled during that quarter. It has to be the next one, but it has to be within a quarter. So I was mostly right.
Okay, okay, wait a minute.
17.8 in the new version.
17.8? That's material progress.
17.8, I think you're still looking in the old one because
Right.
I just read it out loud, and some of the numbering has changed. So in the most current version, it is 17.8, which is page 202.
17.8, page 202. Hold on. Let me go find that.
Now, I am looking about postpone indefinitely because I have a question about that. It is the right answer, by the way. B is the right answer.
Is there further rules and explanations? Okay, hang on. Which is before form an example. Further rules and okay, there's further rules and explanations. Okay. It is 17, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs after that one. Taking a question from the table. Not to ask questions been laid on the table. Yeah, they totally rewrote. They rewrote this whole section. They really did.
I actually think there's a better answer that isn't one of them. And I think the best answer to this question, because it says it's a main motion. Now, it doesn't say whether it's a main original motion or a main incidental motion, but I think the best answer is to move to objection to consideration of the question. I would think that would be the best answer, but it's not one of them.
If it's a main motion, yes.
Yeah, and all it says is main motion. It doesn't... Yeah. So we're going to assume it's a main original motion. So I think...
You can't do that, yeah.
Correct. But it's not one of them. Out of all of them, I actually think D is the better answer. But the answer is B, and I'll tell you why I think D is better. This is just such an interesting discussion. But I know why they didn't pick D. If someone made the motion, obviously there is some idiot who wants to adopt or reject it. If someone made it to begin with, somebody wants it to be heard. So that's why they didn't pick D. Now, the reason why B, I don't think is, I mean, it's the most practical of all of these answers. But the reason why objection to consideration of the question is better is, if you're there, first in line, boom, objection to consideration of the question, you don't even discuss it.
Yeah.
And that leads to absolutely no negative consequences for the assembly. Whereas postpone the motion indefinitely is debatable. And you get to go into debate of the underlying question. And some of the undesirable consequences can come from the debate itself, not just the adoption or lack of adoption.
Right.
So, but the answer was B. You did, in fact, take it correctly.
Also, B is the B is the simplest way to do it, because, I talked about C, refer to a committee and then let it die in the committee. That's something that a lot of legislatures love to do. They will pass. Colorado's great for this with their Health, Safety, and Veterans Committee, which is a way that which is also known as the Kill Committee. There, they will refer a bill to that committee where it then goes to promptly die. Now, in Roberts, we have if it's referred to a committee, then the committee has to be constituted and they have to come up with a recommendation, unless upon immediately forming the committee, there's a motion to discharge the committee, at which point it dies and the motion dies with it. But that takes another step. So postponing indefinitely is a one-step answer, and that's the easiest way to handle it.
Here's
also, what's kind of an improper use of a committee anyway.
Here's what's so interesting also about this. Now, you're not supposed to refer a motion to a committee in ordinary societies to kill it. Right. The committee's supposed to report back. But here's an interesting statement in the old version. I don't know if it's in the new one. It says the adoption of the motion to postpone indefinitely is, in effect, an indirect rejection of the motion. So notice how they said expressly reject. They put that word expressly there for a reason, because the motion to postpone indefinitely is an indirect rejection. This kind of leads into, though, what you and I were talking about before. That motion can be brought back up again, just not that session. But it can be brought up again next session. It doesn't kill it, like die with fire, go to the fiery pits of hell, and never come back. Unlike some persons, it can be renewed. Yeah. Whether certain people would like it or not, it can be renewed. And it can also be
about expressly reject. Expressly reject means you vote it down. It's that
Right,
simple.
right. But it is an indirect rejection.
Right.
I only encountered this. I'm not going to say I only encountered this motion once, but I only encountered this motion once as a way to pretty much kill emotion. And I don't remember all the details of it because of COVID brain, and I actually think it was wrong at the time, but it had to do with that whole M. Carling, when he was JC chair, moving to rescind a decision from 10 years ago.
Jeez.
And somehow the LNC got involved in voting on it. I don't even know how. Like the LNC and the JC, like there was some wrong stuff that happened back then, but I didn't know anything. But the motion ended up getting postponed indefinitely. Yeah. And I don't remember the details enough to talk about it cogently, but that was the only time I ever seen it used in this persuasion. Please, again, you guys, forgive me for words I'm not using precisely. My doctor actually gave me some medication. There are new studies out there that there's some off-label use of medication to get rid of the COVID fog in your brain. One of them is a diabetes medication called like Metaform, I think it's called, or Metaforum.
Really?
But it makes you nauseated, and you know I already have intestinal problems.
Yeah.
And the other two lower your blood pressure. And I already have naturally very low blood pressure. So my options were limited. I mean, my average blood pressure is 110 over maybe 89. I have low blood pressure. Like when I'm in a normal range of 120 to 130, I'm freaked out. So
your glycemic is fine. It's your systolic that's lousy.
So the doctor did not want to give me anything that would lower my blood pressure because I haven't been eating very well and have nearly fainted a couple times already. So I got the metformin, but because I already have gastro issues, I got like half a dose. So we'll see. She said it will help, but not help as much as it would for someone who could take a full dose. So if anyone gets COVID, ask your doctor about those because it's supposed to really, really help, particularly if you don't have low blood pressure or gastro issues. Okay, let's done talking about that.
If you get COVID, take 1,000 milligrams daily of quercetin accompanied with a 22 milligram dose of zinc and a 3 milligram dose of chelated copper and 10,000 IUs of vitamin D. That will help you get over it in a large hurry.
This is a
cocktail that I've used for years. Anyway,
this is a filthy show, so I just want you to stop for a second.
What?
Vitamin D.
Well, what's wrong with vitamin D?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with vitamin D. Most people need a bit more vitamin D in their life.
Go stick themselves out in the sun for a while.
Oh boy.
It's vitamin D, not vitamin me.
I think this must be a ladies only joke because all the ladies right now are going.
That's gotta be because I have no idea what your church is.
Because the ladies always be saying, "Girl, you just need some vitamin D." Okay. All right. Next question.
I think I
you get it now, huh? It was going over your head there.
No, I think it was coming out of the head. But anyway,
yes.
I think you jumped a question there.
I went to number 2. I went to the next question.
Go back one just to make sure. I thought I saw you jump and then jump again.
Nope.
But okay, never mind. Okay, we're fine.
I have it set up right this time. Okay. Now, remember, all these questions are related. So after we had the longest discussion on the first one and then the ones following it, I wish this test booklet mixed it up a little bit more.
I wish they'd let us use a book on the exam like the real world.
But just saying, we learned something in depth about one particular topic each of these shows because of these questions are all interrelated. So I'm glad we had the very long discussion on the first one. So the adoption of the motion to postpone indefinitely. A, suppresses the main motion for all future meetings. B, allows the main motion to be brought up again at the business meeting the next day during a convention. C, allows the action to be renewed after the intervening business has transpired. D, kills the main motion for the duration of the session.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer to this one is. Well, let's walk through it. Suppresses the main motion for all future meetings. We just mentioned that a second ago that's not the case.
And let's stop for a second there. You can't do that.
No.
That's like impossible. No matter how much a certain chair might want that to happen, that is impossible.
It doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Right.
B, allows for the main motion to be brought up again at the business meeting for the next day during a convention. Well, the next business meeting during a convention is still part of the same session, so that is not true either. And we know that that's not true because, well, let's face it, how many conventions have we done? C, allows the action to be renewed after the intervening business has transpired. That is not what postpone indefinitely does. I believe, if I remember correctly, that has to do a renewal of a motion.
Or perhaps lay on the table.
Perhaps lay on the table, yes. Anyway, and so the answer is D, kill the main motion for the duration of the session, which is
correct.
Which I mentioned a second ago.
I didn't even look, but I know that's...
we just mentioned that a minute ago anyway in the previous question.
But every once in a while there's an error in these, let's talk for a second without looking in the book. And, we might not get it exactly right. But the difference between a meeting and a session, I find so many people, including a certain chair, do not understand the difference between a meeting and a session.
Yep.
Do you want to take a stab at it, or do you want me to?
Well, okay, there's two parts to this. One is the normal in-person angle, and the other angle is the virtual angle. So for the in-person side of it, it's very simple. You can have multiple meetings within a session, but you do not have multiple sessions within a meeting. And the sessions can run for either, like for a convention until an adjournment sine die, or in the cases of regular meetings on no more than a quarterly basis. The virtual ones are a little trickier, and that's where I have trouble sometimes. So I'm going to defer that one over to you.
Well, that a lot of times will depend upon your special rules of order and your bylaws, because remember, online's not allowed by default unless your bylaws allow it. So that's different for each society. But I want to read what Robert's definition is of a session, because I think it's really good. And I know in the beginning I didn't really understand it. So it says this is what a meeting is. A meeting is a single official gathering of its members. Oh, I'm reading the new version because that's what most people will have. Okay. I'm going to do 8.2 parts 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you.
So 8.2.1. A meeting of an assembly. Remember, we had the whole thing, is the internet a place? So that dumb argument, or an area. A meeting of an assembly is a single official gathering of its members in one room or area to transact business for a length of time, during which there is no cessation of proceedings, and the members do not separate except for a short recess. And we're going to skip that stuff about electronic meetings because that is different for each society. Depending on business to be transacted, a meeting can last a few minutes to a few hours. A session, unless otherwise defined by the bylaws or governing rules of the particular organization or body, is a meeting or series of connected meetings devoted to a single order of business, program, agenda, or announced purpose. When there is more than one meeting, each succeeding meeting is scheduled with a view to continuing succeeding to continuing business at the point where it was left off at the previous meeting. So, at a convention, we're actually not supposed to recess for lunch unless we know people can't leave the building for some reason or another. When we know people are leaving the area, you should adjourn. And then when you come back, it's another meeting. It's part of the same session, but it's another meeting. And that does matter for some motions.
Yes,
but if you're in the middle of the boondocks and you know the only food is at the place you're at, you recess.
Right.
But at nighttime, you adjourn until the next day. So the second day of a convention in the morning, that's a new meeting. And all of that makes a lot of difference when you start getting things like reconsideration and stuff like that. I know that seems a bit technical, but I would recommend that everyone understand the difference between that. It makes a big, big difference as to whether or not your chair says we are adjourning for X or we are recessing for X. Most chairs do not understand that. And 99% of the time, it doesn't make a difference. But there are times...
There's a 1% that can.
Yes. You've got to be very...
Part of that has to do with what we're just talking about with, like this one, killing emotion for the duration of the session. But there's also other cases like, is when a motion to adjourn versus a motion to recess factors in when there's business pending. That's a whole different discussion.
So, I mean, I would, not to shame anybody, though there are some people I don't mind shaming, but just in general, for you with your local chapters, be it of the LP or whatever organization you're in, because this is geared, we tend to be LP specific, but I want to branch out more. If your chair, if your chair does not understand that, they probably are not qualified to be a presiding officer. One of the qualifications for a presiding officer is to know some of these basics. Especially in bigger organizations, you should perhaps, sometimes some of the things we think a chair should do are things actually your executive director should do. Your chair is not supposed to be the figurehead of your organization. They're supposed to be good presiding officers. Now, if they can also be a good figurehead, that's great. It's rare to find those talents in both people. In larger organizations. Now, in smaller organizations, you don't have staff, you don't have things like that. But the more important thing for your chair is to understand the rules and not shit on them.
Here's the quote. Okay. Here's the money quote. 47.6. The presiding officer of an assembly, especially of a large one, should be chosen principally for the ability to preside. This person should be well versed in parliamentary law and should be thoroughly familiar with the bylaws and other rules of the organization, even if he or she is to have the assistance of a parliamentarian. At the same time, any presiding officer will do well to bear in mind that no rules can take the place of tact and common sense on the part of the chairman.
Right, and people get that confused, and they don't understand the role of a chair, and most chairs don't understand the role of a chair. This may come off a little bit arrogant, but I don't care at this point, and I'm certainly not perfect at it, and I've gotten some very constructive feedback that I'm going to have to take into consideration if I decide to go get my PRP. But when I was chairing the bylaws committee, I tried more to be a facilitator, to chair the meeting, not to... And I did overstep in sometimes, but in committees you're allowed to do that, but I was more practicing to be a chair of a regular assembly. The chair is not there to get their will done. The chair is there to assist the rest of the assembly in getting their will done.
Right.
And we have a really bad problem with that in the LP.
Especially in the lower committee. I'm guilty of it too. So
but I mean, from the top down, we have a real big problem with that in the LP. And that's not just the problem of the chair, it's the expectations of the members that they don't understand what the role of a chair is. Okay, number 3, postpone indefinitely, once again, but it's some different SDC. I want to explain that term. SDC, for those of you who don't know, it's a Roberts term for standard descriptive characteristics. If you ever want to learn about emotion quickly, go to that section in Roberts, and Roberts follows the same format for each section, and you'll get almost every answer you want in the very first few paragraphs under the SDCs, the standard descriptive characteristics. So that's what these are right here. It's asking about standard descriptive characteristics of the postpone indefinitely. So A, can interrupt the speaker. B, takes precedence over the motion to amend. The answer to that was in chat earlier. C, opens debate on the main motion. D, does not require a second. Please, on these questions, do not presume small board rules. I'm just saying that to everybody. Presume that we're talking about a larger assembly.
Because in a small board, I don't know, there's some variations, yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's look through this. Postpone definitely. Can interrupt the speaker? The answer is no, because they have to be recognized. So it's not A. Takes precedence over the motion to amend. That is also not true, because because if you make a motion to postpone indefinitely, it does open debate on the motion, and they can move to amend. And if the motion, the amendment goes with the main motion, if it gets postponed indefinitely, or if it winds up going someplace else instead of being postponed indefinitely, like laid on the table or postponed to a certain time. So it's definitely not B. C is definitely true, but postpone definitely does require a second. That's not, so it's not D. The answer is definitely C.
Yeah, it is definitely C, and we said that before, why I thought in the very first question that objection to consideration of the question was a better answer, even though it wasn't one of them, because you really do kill it. For those of you...
This is pretty straightforward.
I have the old book in front of me, but in the new book as well, in the back, in the tinted pages, there's a chart for number B, or letter B, when you're talking about precedence. Postpone indefinitely only takes precedence over the main motion. It does not take precedence over amend. Amend is right above it in the order of precedence.
One of the things that NAP offers are these little flashcards, and
are you cheating?
What?
Are you cheating? Okay.
I'm advertising.
Okay. Better not be looking at those.
Cards, they list the order of precedence from the lowest to the highest for each types of these motions.
Yeah, I don't have those with me, but I have those as well somewhere.
Yeah.
I just don't know where they're at.
I use them all the time in meetings. They're a great reference.
Yeah, I try not to, because I want to remember this stuff, but as I'm getting older, it's getting more and more difficult. And does not require a second. There's very few motions that do not require a second when you're dealing with not small board rules. And that's why I said that. In small boards, which are considered about 11 or less, no motions require a second. So if you're on your county board and you got like 5 board members, you don't have to get seconds. Most do anyway, and I know they're like, whoa, blah, 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 blah. No, that's a waste of time. Don't do it. And if your secretary is recording the names of the seconds in the minutes, they are doing minutes wrong. It does not matter who seconds, and you also do not record in your minutes that it was seconded. It is presumed it was seconded if it got heard, because if the minute debate starts, even if there wasn't a second, it's too late to raise that issue. So if it got to the point that it's in the minutes, you don't put it received a second. that's the biggest mistake I see in minutes, is that it got seconded and who it got seconded by. It does not matter at all, ever. Sorry, seconders. Okay, next motion. Excuse me.
Next question.
Question. I really have COVID brain bad. An original main motion. I don't know what I meant. But let me read that question on here because I mistyped it. No, that's exactly what it says, and it doesn't make any sense to me. An original main motion and a primary amendment to add. I'm assuming it means add words.
I would think
I
so.
thought I mistyped that, but that's what it says in the book. Are pending. What motion is not in order? Lay on the table. Postpone to a certain time. Postpone indefinitely. And let me move me out of here, out of the way. An amendment to strike out words from the primary amendment.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. Okay, we have a main motion, and it has an amendment to add words to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Laying on the table is in order as a higher precedence. Postpone to a certain time also is in order because it's a higher precedence. Postpone indefinitely is not in order. Well, if it's got a lower precedence, it shouldn't be in order. And postpone definitely is lower than an amendment. An amendment to strike words out from the primary. If we're on the amendment to add words, then the amendment is what you're discussing. And it would be in order to either add or strike out words from the primary amendment, but it would not be in order to strike out words from the original wording as part of the main motion. So D is also in order, and the answer is C, postpone indefinitely.
Correct. And that's because it has a lower precedence.
Yes. But
And
I also want to talk through all of them there too. So
yeah, well, it helps our listeners, I think, and if it's encouraging at all. This is a very specialized subject matter that's been somewhat demonized lately, which is a shame because this is a discipline more people need to learn. We've got over 100 watchers between Twitter and YouTube. YouTube doesn't get as many watchers, but we've got a lot of Twitter watchers. So hello and thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to question number 4.
Well, hold on, there's a comment here. The comment that some Kawhi had was C would apply to the amendment if you have to dispose of the amendment first.
Well, then
Not
it
true.
doesn't apply to the amendment because the amendment's been disposed of.
Right.
C would apply to the main motion as amended or not as amended, but you do have to dispose of the amendment first. But it doesn't apply to the amendment because the amendment has to be disposed of first.
Right.
Because,
Okay, next.
you're right, okay. So now we're
Precedent.
going,
That's very solid.
is this, no, this is, we haven't seen, oh yeah, that's not it. Okay, this is where we're at.
Right.
A member who has exhausted his right to debate a question. And what we mean by that, a lot of people don't know that for any question per Roberts, though you probably have special rules of order that change this, a member has a right to debate twice, up to 10 minutes each time. It's always good to have a special rule of order in case you have somebody who's going to get up and do 10 minutes of slam poetry. Of course, that would be dilatory as well, but I'm just saying. But according to Roberts, you can speak twice, 10 minutes each time. A member who has exhausted his right to debate a question may, however, debate the merits of the main question during debate on which of the following motions? Commit or refer, amend, postpone indefinitely, or misspelled, postpone to a certain time.
That's a Brooklyn motion. Okay. Well, I can already tell you that the answer is postpone indefinitely because we've already talked about this multiple times. Amended does not debate the merits of the main question because you're talking about the amendment. Um, po- Postponed to a certain time, you can debate what the time's supposed to be, but it doesn't go into the merits of the question. Commit or refer, it goes to the question of a committee being formed to handle it. So, but postpone definitely. We already know we can bring up the debate of the merits of the question during that motion. And there are some people who will use a postpone indefinitely as a way of maneuvering to give themselves more debate time. It's
Okay. Yeah.
it's technically proper, but it sure the hell isn't very how could I say it ethical.
Yeah. I mean, just
It's
because you have
in
the right
order,
to
but
do
it's
something.
lousy.
Like making a committee of everybody but one person to talk about that person behind their back
What
might
was it? What was
be
the term that was used for that? Committee of the more, or something like that, which doesn't
of the
exist.
most. That was
Thing
a
doesn't
just
exist.
shorthand on my part, and I'm not going to use names. The people thought that was a real term. That was just my shorthand, and then they were using it the rest of the meeting as if that was a real thing. But yeah, to make a committee of everybody but the person who you want to shit talk about, that is parliamentarily in order, but it does make you a shit person. So
Yeah,
not everything you have a right to do is right to do, but it
yeah,
is correct parliamentarily.
yeah,
But it's kind of like getting up, debating, and calling the question. You're allowed to do that, but it makes you a shitheel. It's pulling up the ladder after you, but I think it makes you more of a shitheel to form a committee of everybody except the person you want to shit talk about. There are
right.
times when it is useful for one reason or another to form such a committee, but when it's to shit talk somebody, you really got to be a special kind of monster to want to do that. But you are correct. Postpone indefinitely is correct. So I think we're on our last question now, which
Well,
is
on the other hand, there was a case once where a motion was made, and it was immediately the question was called, and it passed unanimously. And that was the licensing plank back in New Orleans, which was absolutely bizarre because, as much as libertarians like to argue, and yes, we do like to argue, the fact that we passed a brand new, totally whole cloth plank without any debate at all unanimously was okay. In terms of the LP and its conventions, that's the impossible happened.
well.
So
Well, let me tell you something interesting. And
I wrote that plank, which is what, and I was up there first in line to talk about it, and I was like, what just happened? you know?
I want to bring up an interesting question to you because this will come up. Oh no, I can't ask you about it because it may come up in a future appeal. But you can think about it on your own. I think you'll come up with it on your own. I think there's another way that they really fucked up on that motion, and it's so obvious that it took me till today to notice it. So just think about that for a second. It's not on the parliamentary correctness of it. It's something even more simpler than that makes it so obvious that I can't believe I missed it.
Well,
But anyway, we're not going to get into that. So we're on
leave that aside.
our.
Leave that aside. I'm not even sure what you're referring to. So
That's okay, and I won't talk to you privately either because I respect your separation of duties. Last question. The
okay.
motion to postpone indefinitely, A, can be renewed. Let me move me just a little bit closer. Ooh, we're going to touch. Ooh, how exciting. Look at that. Okay. A, can be renewed during the same session if the main question is materially amended. Those sorts of things always get me. B,
Yeah.
goes to a committee with the referred main motion. C, I think that's supposed to be secondary. Let me look. Yeah, C is a secondary motion. B is ignored if pending when the main motion is laid on the table. I do not know the answer to this.
Okay, let's walk through this. First of all, we know C is wrong. It's actually a subsidiary motion, not a secondary motion. So we can throw that one out immediately. Um, okay. The renewal one. Okay, that's an interesting one because how do you renew a postpone indefinitely? I
Make
mean,
make make the same motion again, because
it's like,
if the
yeah, I
main
mean, it
question's
died.
material amended, it's not the same question anymore. That doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense to me.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was going with that. It's like, wait a minute, if it's a main question's material amended, it becomes effectively a different question to postpone indefinitely. So I don't think you can renew it. Um, Goes to a committee with the referred main motion because postpone indefinitely has the lowest precedence on subsidiary motions. If you refer the motion to a committee, the motion to postpone indefinitely goes with it. So that one I believe could be true. D is ignored if pending when the main motion is laid on the table. That is not true because if the motion is laid on the table, the the motion to postpone indefinitely goes with it, and it stays with it until it is taken from the table. At which point we're back to where that was again. So I'm going with the answer of B. It goes to a committee with the referred main motion.
Okay, you're not gonna like this, and I don't think we'll go to the old version, because
Yeah.
I still don't know the answer to this, but I'm telling you what the book says the answer to this is, or at least the quiz. Let me make sure I didn't get to the wrong line. C is a secondary motion.
What?
I'm just telling you what the answer sheet
unless
says.
unless they're calling subsidiary secondary motions.
Um, let's see.
But Chapter 6 says subsidiary motions, and the very first one is Section 11, postpone indefinitely.
But let's try to suss this out. I really don't know the answer to this. I wish Richard Brown was here to help us make sense of this. But let's go through the ones we know definitely. Can be renewed during the same session if the main question is materially amended. Well, the main question can't be like literally materially amended because it got postponed indefinitely. What could happen is that someone makes a new motion that is different enough from the original one that it could be heard again, but that's not the same thing as A. So A, I understand. It's the rest of them I'm not
Oh,
understanding.
I know what they're saying about secondary motion. Go back. It's on page 59.
Of the old version?
Yes,
Okay, let's see.
Chapter 3, Section 5.
Okay, nature of secondary motions.
Right above that.
I see what they're saying. Subsidiary, and this messes me up every time. I've gotten
Uh-huh.
messed up by this so many times.
Yeah, it just
Subsidiary
got me.
motions, privileged motions, and incidental motions are their own names, but they fall under the broader category of secondary motions. To use
Yeah,
the type of example I like to use all the time, you know, poodles, German shepherds, and chihuahuas are all dogs,
right.
even though they're not
Versus,
all the same thing.
yeah.
Okay, I get it
So that,
now.
that was almost a trick question, but not quite.
But that's probably the kind of question you're going to see on the test,
Yeah.
is ones like that. I think that was probably, because it was kind of tricky like that, tricky dicky, was probably the most helpful as far as for your study wise, because I've
Yeah.
heard this new test is really hard. Because I heard it's really hard, I expect you're going to pass. Let me just tell you, I believe in
What?
you. No, I'm going to tell you, I believe in you, and I think you're going to pass. But if
I think
by some godforsaken reason you don't, do not be hard on yourself, because apparently a lot of really bright people are complaining that they made this initial test way too hard. I've heard this from a lot of people, but I have confidence you're going to pass. All right, that's about. Let's go to the main screen again, so we could like talk like normal people without a question on the screen, as normal as we can possibly be.
Hey, I was gonna say, don't insult me like that.
Woo.
Me? Normal?
So,
please.
That was fun, actually. I enjoyed getting back into that. It's been a while, because lately all the arguments have been over like really just basic dumb things, and I like getting more into this esoteric stuff. So that was fun. I am not sure if I am going to be able to do it on Sunday, but let's try, even if it's only 6 questions instead of 10. I'm obviously preparing for my trial, which is going to be spent, I'm going to be spending a great deal of time on, but I want you to do well on this test. So even if we just do a shorter show of 6 questions instead of 10, or 5 questions instead of 10, I did 6 this time because there was 6 on one page. And that way we'll get some of those tricky ones in there, because I think getting you mastering some of these like really weird tricky ones like that is going to be the difference.
Yeah. The way things are slated right now, I actually got the email in to join the ExamSoft portal that they use for the test. That came in today. I'm looking at probably to take it somewhere right around the 29th of the month, because it runs through November 3rd is the exam window. That's going into that weekend, so that gives me as much time as possible to do this.
Okay.
So if we can do something Sunday just to keep you on trucking, let's go for it.
Yeah, even if it's a little bit shorter, because I'm recovered. I'm not infectious, but I like sleep so much. I am just, and I really do, even though I don't. There are some people on the LNC that I think I'm going to get a very fair hearing from, but there are others that they might as well vote now. They don't care what I have to say. But I'm going to do my best, and we shall see how that goes. So we're going to go with the closing music. I hope everyone who is watching, so we got 140 watchers. Hi.
Before you hit the closing music, we want to do this at the same time Sunday, or do we want to do it 7 Mountain, 8 my time?
I like doing 7 Mountain. You know the reason why I pushed it back this time is because I'd been sick. I had some work to catch up on. But let's plan for 7 Mountain. And okay. Well, let's do. Okay, we're gonna do our closing music, and we'll see you guys on Sunday. Bye-bye. And Mike, I'm going to cut you off right after this rather than us usually staying and chit-chatting, because I really need to go lay down.
Get some rest.
All right, bye-bye. Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Oh, wait, why is it doing that? Huh. Here we go.
Fever! Let's hear the opposition side. Like a stubborn donkey's bray. All opposed? You say nay. Opposed! Opposed! The motion carries anyway.